What happens when the family that cast you out suddenly realizes you've owned their lives all along? What do you do when you hold the keys to their homes, their money, even their future? Do you show mercy, or do you teach them a lesson they'll never forget? In this explosive continuation of the disowned son and the hidden empire, Nathan has flipped the script. His family, once arrogant and blind, now crumbles under the weight of a truth they never saw coming. But just when they think the nightmare is over, he's only just begun. Stay with us, because what Nathan does next will change everything, and the question isn't if they'll pay the price, it's how high that price will be. It was 2:14 a.m. when Nathan's phone lit up. Just one message, short, brutal, from his eldest brother Marcus, the same man who hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. Dad died. You're not welcome at the funeral. Stay away. No condolences, no explanation, just a cold dismissal, like he wasn't even part of the family anymore. Nathan stared at the glowing screen, numb. The blue light carved shadows across his tired face, making him look older than his 34 years. The room around him, minimal, clean, silent, echoed his isolation. On the sleek marble desk beside him sat two things: a photo of his father taken 20 years ago, and a thick, leather-bound folder stamped confidential, protocol, family trust. He slowly placed the phone down. There were no tears. Not anymore. He'd run out of those years ago, back when his father first called him a disgrace to the Johnson name, back when his siblings mocked his job as a night security guard, thinking he spent his nights guarding empty buildings and watching CCTV feeds in the dark. They never knew the truth. Nathan was no ordinary guard. He had never been. While they laughed behind his back, he was quietly learning, absorbing everything: financial systems, real estate markets, offshore trusts. His night job gave him time to study, plan, and build. It started with one small investment, then 2, then 20, and now he was a silent empire. Nathan Johnson, the family disgrace, was worth over 90 million, and they were all living under his roof without knowing it. Every family home, every vacation property, every trust fund they thought their father controlled was his, owned by hidden holding companies, managed by anonymous lawyers, and protected by a legal fortress he'd spent a decade crafting. Now the man who disowned him was dead, and they still thought he was nothing. They thought wrong. He rose from the desk and walked toward the window. The skyline of the city pulsed with life, neon lights flickering like distant memories. The silence inside was thick, but not empty charged, like the air before a storm. He pulled the folder close and opened it. Inside were the documents he'd prepared over years of strategic silence: ownership transfers, shareholder records, power of attorney files, all pointing to one name: his. It was time. He dialed his attorney. "Activate the protocol," he said quietly. "You're sure?" the voice on the other end asked, sleep still clinging to his tone. "Yes, no more hiding. Send everything to the family's lawyers. They'll know who really owns the empire before the funeral." He hung up. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. They had erased him. He would remind them he had never left. 15 years earlier, Nathan stood at the edge of his father's office, hands clenched, humiliation burning through him like acid. His father's voice still rang in his ears. "You're weak. You'll never be like Marcus. You think working as a night guard is something to be proud of." Marcus stood behind his father, smirking. Naomi, their sister, looked away, arms crossed. Olivia, youngest of the siblings, stood furthest in the corner, eyes filled with something that almost looked like pity. That was the last day Nathan ever set foot in that house. They stripped his name from family trust documents. They blocked him from family events. And when the inheritance conversation started, Nathan wasn't even mentioned. He wasn't bitter back then, just broken, until he realized something powerful. Rejection is fuel. Back in the present, Nathan poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring at the fire pit crackling in the center of the room. Above the fireplace hung a painting, abstract, chaotic. Olivia had painted it years ago when they were still close. Olivia, she was the only one who had ever shown warmth, the only one who once sneaked into his room after their father's outburst, holding a sandwich and whispering, "Don't listen to him, you're going to make it someday." He hadn't spoken to her in years, but tonight, as if summoned by memory, his phone buzzed again. Olivia, he let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then picked up. "Nathan, I just heard." Her voice was soft, strained, about the funeral. "That message from Marcus, he shouldn't have said that, I'm so sorry." He said nothing. "I know things have been terrible," she continued, "and I didn't always say something when I should have. But I miss you. I still think about you all the time." Nathan swallowed. "I appreciate that," he said finally, "but it's already done. Everything's already moving." There was a pause. "What does that mean?" she asked. He glanced at the burning fireplace, the documents, the empire. "It means by tomorrow, they'll all know the truth about the homes, the trusts, the power, all of it." Olivia gasped. "You own everything." "Yes," Nathan said quietly. "I always have." Another silence. Then just as softly she whispered, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because even love can't survive doubt. I had to be sure you didn't pity me. Now I'm not hiding anymore." The next morning, the emails hit like grenades. Marcus's phone exploded with calls from lawyers. Naomi's husband, an arrogant real estate broker, was seen storming out of his office after reading a brief from the firm that handled their family trust. Nathan had sent the documents to all of them. No more masks, no more silence. The empire they'd been living in, the wealth, the homes, the security belonged to the brother they disowned. The funeral was scheduled for Sunday, but Saturday had already set the tone. Marcus sat in his office, hands trembling. The letterhead was clear: Archway Holdings. The ownership trail, unmasked line by line, led to a single person, Nathaniel Johnson. He stormed into Naomi's house, waving the papers like weapons. "Did you know?" he shouted. Naomi shook her head, stunned. "This has to be a joke. It's a trick. Nathan was a night guard." "No, he was never a guard," Olivia said from the doorway, her eyes calm. "He was building something. While you all mocked him, he was rising." "You're taking his side now," Marcus growled. "I never stopped," she replied. Back at his apartment, Nathan sat alone, watching the news coverage of his father's passing. Tributes poured in from political figures, business partners, and community leaders. No one mentioned the disowned son. Not yet. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small silver box. Inside was a single photo of him and his father on his 10th birthday. They were smiling, his father's arm wrapped tightly around him. Back when he still believed love was unconditional. "I wanted to be you," he whispered. "All I ever wanted was to make you proud." But now he had surpassed him, and somehow it didn't feel like victory. That night, Nathan stood before a mirror, adjusting his suit. The funeral was in the morning. He wouldn't crash it. No, that would be petty. But his presence would still be felt. As guests entered the Johnson estate for the private memorial, they would be greeted with black banners bearing a simple emblem, NJ Holdings. And at the end of the service, the lawyer would read the revised trust statement out loud. By court order, Nathan wouldn't need to say a word. The empire would speak for itself. And yet, as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in pale gold, Nathan stood quietly on his balcony, gazing into the distance. There was no joy, no smugness, only grief. Grief for the father who never saw him. Grief for the siblings who never knew him. Grief for the family they could have been. Sometimes the deepest pain isn't being hated, it's being invisible. But by tonight, the world would see him, and so would they. It was 9:02 a.m. When the storm officially began. Nathan sat in his penthouse office. Lights dimmed, a warm espresso untouched beside him. Before him were 3 widescreen monitors, each one split into multiple live security feeds. Silent footage flickered in real time, capturing every hallway, every office, every reaction. Every unraveling lie the law firm of Caldwell, Brooks and Stein, bathed in early morning sunlight, became a stage. And today's play had only one writer, Nathan, camera one. Marcus Johnson, firstborn cocky and furious, stormed into the lobby in a tailored suit and an ego too large for the glass doors to contain. He barked at the receptionist, waved his appointment confirmation like a warrant, and glared up at the security camera, unaware that Nathan was behind the lens. Camera 2, Rebecca, the ever-graceful second sister, stepped in, wearing designer morning clothes and pearl earrings that Nathan himself technically owned. She looked composed until she saw the marble plaque inside the waiting room. Johnson Family Holdings, Ownership Disclosure Day. She froze. Camera 3. Edward, the youngest son, walked in, 10 minutes late, still smelling faintly of last night's bourbon. His shirt was half untucked, and the panic in his eyes said everything Olivia had called him. He hadn't believed her. Now he did. Nathan leaned forward as the feed cut to conference room A. The room was sleek mahogany table, mirrored walls, rows of bottled water and tissues. One corner camera focused on the long rectangular table where the family was now seated, all except one. Him, James, the family's longtime attorney, stood at the head of the table, sweating. He cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear may be disturbing, but every line has been verified and legally executed. Rebecca crossed her arms. Why is Nathan's name on this meeting? Edward scoffed. Probably some misunderstanding or a prank. But James didn't smile. He reached for a folder, the one marked in red. Confidential. NJ Holdings transition package. Then he read. Nathan watched as their faces shifted from curiosity to confusion to horror. Page after page, revelation after revelation. The estate in Martha's Vineyard, purchased by NJ Holdings 3 years ago. The family trust, reacquired in full via a blind buyout. Their father's pension fund, dissolved assets restructured by Nathan under a new LLC. Every vacation home, every corporate shell, every stream of passive income they depended on, owned by one person. The disgrace, the ghost, the forgotten brother, Nathan. Rebecca stood up first, nearly knocking over her chair. This is nonsense, she spat. He was a guard, a night guard. Olivia flinched. James calmly slid the ownership trail toward her. Sign notarized time-stamped offshore accounts. Cayman filings, full paper trail. No, Rebecca whispered. No, no, no. Edward grabbed the papers, eyes darting through the legalese. He owns the trust. He asked, incredulous. How? When he can't. Oh, he can, James said. And he does. As of this morning, every financial decision that affects your lives requires Nathan's approval. Silence fell. Then, a scream, a low guttural sound, as Edward flung the papers across the table. Nathan leaned back in his chair and clicked a key. The audio file from Sarah, his assistant, played next. Scene, law office, lobby character. James, the brother-in-law, red-faced, furious. You tell Nathan to show his face like a man, James bellowed at Sarah. Hiding behind documents and cameras, he's a coward. Sarah, ever composed in her navy blue blazer and cool voice, replied without flinching. Mr. Johnson has no obligation to attend. But he's watching. Every word, every tantrum. You're performing directly for him. James turned purple. Sarah didn't blink. Back in the penthouse, Nathan smirked faintly. She was good. His phone vibrated again. Message from Olivia. Nathan, please, let's talk. Just you and me. Don't do this like them. I still love you. Then another voicemail from Mother, her voice aged and strained. Nathan, baby, I know we haven't spoken, but your father, he didn't mean everything he said. He was old, stubborn. We all were. I miss you. Please don't shut us out forever. Nathan let the message end. No reply, not yet. For years they had painted him in shadows. Now they stood in his light and squinted. As the meeting wore on, Olivia remained quiet. She sat still, eyes scanning the documents, lips slightly parted. When James and Rebecca shouted, she didn't join in. When Edward cursed and stormed out, she stayed. And when James finally said, "He's doing this to humiliate us," Olivia finally spoke. "No, he's doing this to show us who he became while we weren't watching." Silence. James scoffed. "You're defending him now. I'm recognizing him," Olivia said. For the first time, back in the penthouse, Nathan heard her voice and paused. He reached toward the monitor, brushing her image with his fingers, just once, then pulled back. He clicked open a private folder titled Family Messages. Over the years, he had kept them all. Every cruel text, every sarcastic birthday card, every ignored invitation, every email thread where his name was skipped over. He had kept receipts, not for vengeance, for proof. Proof that they had burned the bridge, and he had simply built a city on the other side. By noon, the legal disclosures had spread. Investors were calling. Business magazines were sniffing around. Old classmates were emailing congratulations laced with disbelief. But Nathan didn't answer any of them. He turned the monitors off one by one. Then he walked into the next room. His sanctuary there, behind a sliding steel panel, was a private vault. Inside were blueprints, vision boards, real estate maps, a 3-year plan titled Legacy Shift, Phase 2, Public Power. For years his wealth had been hidden. Now it was time to wield it. But first, let them feel the collapse. By evening, the family's group chat, which once excluded him entirely, lit up with messages, now awkwardly including his number again. Rebecca, we need to talk. This affects everyone. Don't act like you're not one of us. Edward, this isn't over. You better fix this, Nathan. Mother, please come for dinner. No lawyers, just family. Olivia, I'm at the cafe we used to go to. Come if you want to talk. No pressure. Nathan saved the messages, then deleted the group thread, all except Olivia's. He stared at her text for a long moment, then locked his phone. The next morning, newspapers carried the story. Black sheep turns empire builder, the disowned son who now owns it all. The media called him mysterious, ruthless, brilliant. They didn't know half of it. He wasn't angry anymore. He was awake. They had told the world he failed. Now the world was asking how he did it. And yet, in the quiet corners of his mind, grief still curled like smoke. He didn't want them ruined. He wanted them aware. To feel what it meant to judge someone prematurely, to misunderstand quiet strength, to see the cost of arrogance. His phone buzzed again. This time, a video message from his mother. She was sitting in her old chair, the one by the fireplace. "You were always different," she whispered. "But I should have seen it was strength, not weakness. I'm sorry. Nathan, I'm so sorry." He paused the video. For a moment his eyes burned, but he blinked it away. The world now knew who Nathan Johnson was, but the real reckoning had just begun. Because empires weren't just built on money, they were built on memory. and the people who once erased him now had to live in the house he owned. Brick by brick. It was over at least the first act. The sun had begun its slow descent beyond the steel skyline as Nathan leaned against the glass wall of his penthouse office. Below, the city pulsed with ordinary lives, unaware that high above them, a silent king watched his broken court retreat. He had won, but the victory felt quiet, not empty, just still. Like the pause between thunder and rain, the monitors showed the law firm lobby once more. One by one they left, heads down, lips tight, no longer with the confidence of heirs, but with the heavy dread of strangers caught trespassing in someone else's empire. Rebecca, who had once refused to attend Nathan's graduation, now refused to look the receptionist in the eye. Edward, whose laughter used to echo with scorn, now muttered profanities under his breath, his steps heavy with shame. James, their legal puppet, tore off his tie and snapped at his wife on the sidewalk. A mother once, so regal in her judgment, looked smaller, bent by something heavier than grief. She clutched her pearls and blinked too much. Only Olivia lingered. She stood outside the glass doors staring across the street, not looking at anything, really, but clearly hoping, waiting. Nathan knew what she wanted. Not money, not apologies. A connection, something true. He watched her hover by the crosswalk for 10 more minutes. Then with a slow exhale, she crossed the street, not toward a cab, not toward home, but into the cafe across the corner, their cafe, the one they used to sneak into as kids after church, while the others argued over inheritance, reputation and wine. He closed the monitor. It was easier this way. Behind him, the office was dim, save for the spotlight hanging over a simple frame on his desk. A photograph, their last family picture, taken 10 years ago. It was supposed to be a Christmas card, matching sweaters, forced smiles, snow in the background. But even then, he remembered the chill wasn't from the weather. In the photo, he stood at the edge, literally cut off by the frame. His arm was behind his father's back, but it was cropped. His smile was polite, nervous, trying. No one leaned toward him. Even then, he had been edited out. He picked up the photo and stared. "You taught me to be tough," he whispered to it as if his father could still hear him. "You taught me that weakness doesn't belong in the bloodline." His hand curled slightly around the frame. Well, look what strength built. The time had come. Phase 2. He walked across the room, past the frame patents, past the glass case, containing every company registration, to a steel briefcase sitting on a marble table. Inside was a flash drive, and inside that flash drive, documents that would shatter what little dignity his family clung to. He owned their office buildings, their companies, the stocks they thought they inherited, controlled the banks they used, influenced the trust fund lawyers they ran, to already signed NDAs with Nathan's holding entities years ago. With a single press of a button, he could broadcast it all. Make headlines, go viral, not out of vengeance, just clarity. So that the world would finally know what he had become while they weren't watching. He plugged the drive into his laptop, the screen lit up. Phase 2 asset control, public transparency protocol. His finger hovered over execute, then paused. He sat back in his chair, stared at the blinking cursor and exhaled. "No," he murmured, "not yet." The truth had landed, and the silence that followed was louder than any exposure. They were already broken, not by what he owned, but by realizing they never saw him coming. Let them sit with that. Let them question every dinner, every gift, every year they laughed behind his back, never realizing they were laughing in houses he paid for. The funeral was 2 days away. Nathan had no intention of attending, at least not in the way they expected. He walked into his private archive room, rows of binders, black boxes and safes containing records of every deal, every document, every betrayal and every silent kindness. In the corner beneath a grey cloth, sat a sealed wooden crate. Inside memorabilia, photos, letters, old notebooks. Even his father's military medal given to Nathan, once in a rare moment of respect, then snatched back a week later when he failed to measure up. He opened the crate and pulled out an envelope labelled "Never Opened." It was a birthday card from his 8th birthday. His father had written, "To my son, make me proud, or make yourself disappear." Nathan held the card for a long time, then burned it. Later that evening, as the city lights bloomed like stars below, Nathan wrote a letter, not to any of them, but to himself. He dated it, signed it, then sealed it with a wax stamp bearing his personal crest, an oak tree, its roots deeper than its branches wide. Day of the funeral, it rained. Of course it did. Nathan arrived not in a limo, but in a charcoal suit, plain unmarked. No entourage, no umbrella, no family. He stood near the cemetery gates just outside view. Far enough not to be seen, close enough to see everything. They were all there, draped in black, faces drawn. The pastor spoke in shallow praise. The family nodded in practiced grief, but there was no unity in their posture. Only fragments. Broken people in borrowed clothes. Rebecca clung to James's arm, but didn't meet his gaze. Edward wiped his nose with a trembling hand and stared at the ground the whole time. Olivia looked back twice, as if she could feel Nathan's presence. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. As the casket was lowered, the final prayers said, and the crowd began to disperse. Nathan stepped forward at last, alone. The groundskeeper paused when he saw him, but Nathan gave a silent nod and the man moved aside. Nathan stood over the grave, staring at the tombstone. Gerald Malcolm Johnson, beloved father, fearless leader, legacy maker. He let the silence stretch. Then at last he spoke. "I wasn't your legacy," he said quietly, "but I became one anyway." The wind blew gently, lifting the edge of his coat. "You disowned me, Father. You made sure I felt it. You made sure they believed it. You buried me long before this day." A pause. "But I grew." He stepped closer, lowered something into the grave. A sealed envelope with his own family photo inside. One he had taken last year, with his team Sarah, his assistant Carlos, his driver Layla, and Yusuf, his investment partners. People who saw him, respected him, stood by him, his real family. "I'll take care of them," he whispered, then looked up at the overcast sky, but not in the way you expected. As he walked away, he didn't look back. The cemetery faded behind him, but in his heart, something had shifted. Not vengeance, not grief, just peace. The boy they forgot had become the man they depended on, and now he was finally free. Was this justice, or just the beginning of revenge? Because when Nathan shows up, he's not just attending the funeral, he's burying the past and resurrecting the truth. Next part, the funeral and the face behind the mask, coming soon. Thank you for staying with us till the very end of this chapter. Nathan's journey is far from over, and the questions it raises may echo in your own life. What would you do if the ones who rejected you depended on you all along? If this story moved you, surprised you, or even made you think twice about family pride and power? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. What do you think Nathan should do next? And if you don't want to miss what happens in part 4, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because trust me, the funeral will change everything. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay strong.